a little bit of a dual quarter. We're going to go to quarter number 4, branding and marketing. While we're talking to our guests for quarter number 4, make sure that you guys are asking your questions because we're going to do a Q&A segment at the end. So any of the guests who've appeared so far, if you have a question we didn't answer at the end, we'll bring them back for you guys. But quarter number 4, branding and marketing, we have a special guest. He goes by the name of Lanny. What's up?
What's going on, y'all? How y'all doing?
Good.
Lanny, what's good? H-Town, stand up.
You already know, man.
We already know. Listen, Lanny, first of all, thank you for coming on to the show. And I know Lanny just flew in, guys. If you don't know, he just went from coast to coast, back to LA coast, and he's able to get on with us. Now, Lanny, I want people to know your background a little bit because you just was not a business owner and a CEO of a company. You used to hoop a little bit.
Yeah, just a tad bit, man.
Just a tad bit. Just a tad bit.
Man. I from Houston, Texas, from H-Town. Grew up in Missouri City, Texas, and played high school at Hightower High School. Man, shout out my youngin' Bryce. That's there right now, man, carrying on that Hightower legacy. Then I went on to play my college ball at the University of Houston. Definitely shout out to Cougs. I think we're top 10 in the country right now, man. Coach Sampson's done an incredible job turning around that program and building a powerhouse, a future powerhouse. And then, man, I spent some time in the G League and then signed with the Sacramento Kings in 2009. And 33 days after I signed my first NBA contract, I tore my knee up, man. Had 2 of the big fellas fall into my knee. Had 2 microfracture surgeries, and my career was over with just as quickly as it had begun. So, yeah, man, the game is something that's been a part of my life, my whole life, man. And that was my dream from 5 years old, was to make it to the NBA. That's what I applied every aspect of my life. Growing up was dedicated to trying to make it to the NBA, and then unfortunately, God had different plans for me.
So speaking of God,
let me rephrase that. Fortunately, God had different plans for me. It just wasn't the plan that I had for myself at the time. So yeah.
You know, Lanny, one thing that I've learned is that's how life is, right? Is not always what happens to you, is how you respond to it once 100%. It happens. 100%. And that leads me into the next question, because you have one of the best brands out there. I've been rocking with your brand for years, and that's Active Faith. And
Active Faith Sports, yep.
Active Faith Sports. And I know you have a few big investors. Would you like to tell us about Active Faith so people can kind of see what you built?
Yeah. So Active Faith Sports, it's a faith-based sports apparel brand. Growing up, those were the 2 things that were the most important to me. My faith. My mom, she raised us in the church, and sports. Those were the two biggest things in my life. And when my career ended, I really didn't have a plan B, to be honest. And I was back at home, living with my mom, and just praying and trying to think, what is going to be the next step in my life? What am I going to do next? And after a lot of prayer, God gave me this vision for this sports apparel brand that was faith-based. And so when I thought about it, most of my teammates, the guys that I grew up playing with or against, they all had some foundation of faith in their lives. And, we all grew up wearing the best of the best, the Nike, the Jordan, Adidas, whatever it was. And so I thought, it would be cool to create a brand that took those 2 elements and put them together. You know what I mean? Have this high quality sports apparel brand that had these messages of faith and inspiration and encouragement on them. And so we launched in 2011. And early on, man, my friends Steph Curry and Anthony Tolliver, those were the first 2 guys that as soon as they were checking on me, trying to see how I was doing, how was I adjusting to not playing anymore, told them about this idea. And they immediately, said, hey, we would love to be a part of this. They invested some seed capital into it. And man, it just, it took off almost immediately. And we've got customers in 75 different countries, got over 100 guys in the NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, Major League Soccer that's been wearing the brand organically, You know, they're not being paid to wear it. They're wearing it because, you know, the message and what it stands for is something that resonates with them. So, yeah, Active Faith it's been a huge blessing, man.
Active Faith. I was rocking Active Faith 10 years ago, and it's crazy to be for you to own your own company for a decade. So what type of branding and marketing strategies could you provide other people out there to be able to sustain even, 6 months? I mean, you've done 10 years. So what kind of ideas you would like to share with people that are watching?
Yeah. First and foremost, man, you know, I like to keep it real and be authentic with people. You know what I mean? And building a clothing brand is there's a high percentage of failure when it comes to that industry and trying to build a successful brand when it comes to this apparel thing. The best piece of advice that I could give anybody from the beginning is think more so about building an audience. Who is the audience that you're serving? Who is the audience that you're targeting with this brand? I think a lot of people, you know, they come up with a dope saying that they think looks cool on a t-shirt or a hoodie, and then they think they have a brand, and they're not thinking past whatever that saying is or whatever that name is that they put on that hoodie. They're not thinking, well, who is the audience that's going to be targeted with this brand? And if you don't have that audience, it's going to be hard to sustain any level of success or revenue or sales past that initial, you know, your homeboys and your family, you know, supporting you and grabbing a hoodie or a t-shirt. How do you sustain that? Like you said, we've been in the game 10 years now with Active Faith. I saw that the Christian audience was not being specifically served by your Nike, your Adidas, your Under Armour. Those giants were never going to put anything about faith on their products. So there was a gap in the market that I saw that I could step in and serve that audience. And so being able to serve that audience is it makes it bigger than just one product or one saying that you've put on your product. These people are buying into that brand and what it means to them and how it makes them feel. And so, you know, the feedback that I've received from our customers is, you know, when they're wearing an Active Faith shirt or Active Faith hoodie, it's bigger than just the product. You know, this is something that inspires them. You know, we still get emails from people who are fighting through chemotherapy. They've been diagnosed with cancer. They're fighting through chemotherapy, and they're saying, when I wear my Active Faith shirt, when I wear my Active Faith wristband, whatever it is, this reminds me to be active in my faith. So there's a connection to the brand that's bigger than just the product itself. The messaging means something to them. So,
man, that's a gem. Boy, you dropped some gem right there, because when I'm watching people on social media and I watch people create what you would say like a slogan or something like that, they thought they created a brand, but they haven't targeted an audience and a particular niche of people that really want to rock with that. So that makes a lot of sense. And when you think about it, that allowed for you to be able to start Actively Black. Okay. Now, Actively Black was born 2020.
Yeah, we launched on Black Friday, November 27th of 2020. Yeah, it's new.
So it's very new. But I went on the website. I'm like, I need that. I need that. I need that. So what inspired Actively Black? Because we're moving from Active Faith into another branch of being Actively Black. Now, what was inspired that? Where did that come about?
Yeah, man. So I had the idea maybe for at least 2 years, and I just kept putting it on the shelf. Active Faith was taking up all of my time, you know, and I just kept putting it on the shelf. You know, when I talk about building these brands, I think, you know, and this is kind of a follow-up to your last question, you got to make sure that what you're doing, you have some passion about it. You know what I mean? There's got to be something that you have a personal connection to.
Right.
And for me, that's how I've been able to build these brands. So for Actively Black, you know, I'm a Black man in America. And as we know, there are the unfortunate truths and realities of what we have to face as Black people and as Black men in America. And I feel like, you know, the essence of who we are has always been downplayed. I feel like, you know, that negativity that has surrounded, you know, racism and discrimination and all those different types of things. have filtered through, every area of our lives. And so 2020 happens. We know everything that happened with George Floyd, the results of that, the protests, everything that was pushed to the forefront. And we're in the middle of this pandemic. Everybody's at home, and people couldn't escape from it this time. It was in front of people's faces, and you had to face it. And I looked at it like, you know what? I can't put this idea on the shelf any longer. I've got to bring this to fruition. And so on Juneteenth, I actually announced that I was going to do it. And man, I just put my head down and grinded and really focused on bringing this to life. And so Black Friday 2020, it launched. I wanted to build something that was built by us and for us, something that was premium. Like you noticed, the quality of the product is something that stands out, whether you go into the website, the social media, or when you finally receive the product. So I wanted something for our people that didn't sacrifice quality. So you still felt like you were wearing your Nike or your Adidas or your Jordan or whatever, but it was something that represented us. You know what I mean? And the tagline for Actively Black is "There's greatness in our DNA." And I feel like, for Black people especially, once we recognize the greatness that already lives inside of us and we start operating in that greatness, I believe that's going to be the key to us really elevating as a people. There's nobody coming to save us. You know what I mean? Like we have to do this ourselves. And I think that by recognizing those that came before us, the greatness that they had, understanding that greatness lives inside of all of us and operating in that greatness, that's the soul behind Actively Black.
Right. And that's you hear. So I want people to know about this soft launch that you have going with the NBA, surrounding, I think, 3 NBA players that were the first African-American NBA players.
Yeah.
And like, how did you come up with this? And this is really good because some of the viewers that I have, a lot of the viewers I'm going to have are going to be basketball players. And when they understand what happened and what transpired with this, it makes it great.
So, Black history is something that has always been an interest of mine. That's the way I grew up. My mother and my father, they always taught me about, historical figures in Black history outside of what I learned in school, because we obviously know they're not teaching the full history. And so, we all know about the Jackie Robinson story, right? Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in Major League Baseball. And it's been something that year after year in Major League Baseball, they have a Jackie Robinson Day where all the players, they're wearing number 42 on their jerseys to honor Jackie Robinson. And one day I was just thinking, the NBA, even though right now, it's 75+% Black, there was a time where the NBA was all white and they didn't allow Black players to play in the NBA, and was just doing some research on who was the first Black player in the NBA. And it turns out in 1950, there was 3 of them. It was Nat Clifton, Earl Lloyd, and Chuck Cooper. And, one of them was the first to be drafted in the NBA. One of them was the first to actually sign an NBA contract. And Earl Lloyd, just by nature of how the schedule was, he was the first to actually play in an NBA game because his game was first in that season. But those 3 guys that year in 1950, they broke the color barrier in the NBA. And I was actually on the phone with Steph Curry, and I was asking him if he knew those names.
Right.
And he's like, "Yo, let me hit you back." And he hit me back, and he's like, "Bro, I did not know who those guys were." And he had spent the last 2 hours doing his own research, looking up those names. And he said, "There's no way that any player playing today, there's no way that they should not know who these guys are who broke this color barrier." Because when you think about it, the way these guys now are able to generate generational wealth, the way you're able to live this dream, there were guys that came before you. Those 3 guys, they had to suffer from, the racism of the time, fans spitting on them as they're walking through the tunnel, not being able to stay in the same hotels as their teammates, not being served at certain restaurants. This is what they had to deal with, trying to break that barrier of being the first Black players in the NBA. And I think just to pay homage and pay respects to those guys who broke that barrier, every NBA player, every basketball player should know who those guys are.
Right.
So through Actively Black, you know, came up with an idea to commemorate those guys on a hoodie. And, you know, we started sending them out to different NBA players and letting them rock it. And we also included a card in each hoodie that broke down the history, gave them the information so that they're educated on it themselves. And man, it's been dope. You know, some of the guys have started to wear it, walking into the tunnel of the game.
I seen Seth, not Steph, but Seth Curry.
Seth Curry, yeah, the other day.
And I work with Seth, so that's dope. And I'm waiting on my hoodie so I can rock it. And you definitely educated me, because I feel like I'm a basketball historian, right? It ain't too many loops that you can get me on when it comes to basketball. Statistical data, analytical data, from point history, whatever. You got me on those three. And when I was looking at it, I was like, wait a minute. That's something that's important. You know, that's something that's important to me. It's important for all basketball people. And I think you just educated us about those three, and then how strong Actively Black could be in the Black community, amongst not just Black people that want to buy it, but any race, anybody. They need to come out and support you. Where can they find Actively Black, and how can they begin to purchase and make their orders?
Yeah, you can find us at activelyblack.com. That's where you can purchase the product. Obviously, give us a follow on Instagram, Actively Black. And
26,000. I seen it. You just started it in November.
Yeah,
it was 26,000. I clicked the button. I was like, yo, my guy did his thing. It's 26,000. And I thought you started last year. You just started in November.
Yeah. I mean, the timing is right, man. And I feel like, you know, anybody can wear it, but I do feel like there's a collective consciousness of our people who are recognizing the power that we have when we support our own, when we buy our own, when we promote our own. You know, if you think about it, our culture creates what's cool. You know what I mean? And we've lent our talents, our influence to building these other billion-dollar brands that really don't care about our communities. You know what I mean? So why not turn that influence inward and, you know, support our own? And with Actively Black, you know, we have, you know, there's certain pillars that our brand stands on. One is obviously the physical fitness of our people. You know, our community suffer the worst from diabetes, hypertension, high blood pressure. So we've got to get, and my thing is, for the movement to continue, we've got to be able to keep moving. So we got to make sure our bodies are right. The mental health aspect, because there's a lot of generational traumas that our people in our communities have experienced that have gone unchecked. And so the mental health aspect, getting healthy access to healthier foods in our communities. You go to majority Black communities, you're going to see liquor store, fast food, liquor store. You know what I mean? Ain't Whole Foods in the hood for the most part. You know what I mean? So trying to get
not to cut you off, but that's invaluable. Me and Master P, we talk about this all the time, and Master P he believes in product, and so a lot of product that we purchase in the communities, we don't even know who's behind it. So now he's put in product in the community that can not only help our community, but he wants to take the money and reinvest it back into the community, which can be great. And man, that's amazing. Listen, I'm Actively Black, and I'm gonna support you and make sure that I get my gear. I'm ready to rock. So the next show I come on, I want to have my gear on.
No doubt. I got you.
Okay, great. Kennedy, you up?
Thanks so much for, hopping on, Lanny. I just feel like, you tapped into a lot of things. Woo! Here we got to tap into. Yeah, baby. Yeah. So we're about to head into what we like to call overtime. So overtime is in